Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that when Thomas S. Monson was a young boy, he was given a pigeon that would repeatedly fly back to its home? Each time he followed the pigeon back, he would discover someone who needed friendship and service. Learn how President Monson's Birmingham roller pigeons performed and won state and national competitions. Discover that he served in the U.S. Navy near the end of the war, before beginning his church leadership, and later became a counselor in the first presidency, before serving as the 16th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from 2008 until his passing in 2018.
Imagine being appointed to, the absolute highest echelon of global leadership for a massive worldwide organization.
Right, which is already a huge deal.
Oh, exactly. But now imagine doing it at exactly 36 years old.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of.
It really is.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what happened to Thomas S. Monson, the 16th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right.
On October 4th, 1963, he was sustained to the quorum of the 12 apostles. And, for a position of that magnitude, carrying this lifelong, incredibly heavy spiritual weight, 36, is just remarkably young.
It completely shatters the usual timeline we associate with that level of global religious authority.
It really does. So welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are exploring his fascinating life and legacy, and we've got some great biographical texts and excerpts we're pulling from today.
Yeah, some really incredible source material.
And our mission here, the goal isn't just to recite a biography or read a timeline. We want to uncover how a young boy who loved fishing and raising pigeons transformed into this global religious leader who was defined by just massive charity and service.
It's such a captivating case study in human development, honestly, because, when you look at traditional leadership ascents, it's usually about maneuvering, accumulating power, and kind of gradually insulating yourself from the everyday world.
Oh, for sure. The whole corporate ladder thing.
Exactly. But Thomas S. Monson's life flipped that entirely. His foundation wasn't built in a boardroom.
Yeah.
And so to really grasp how someone is prepared for that kind of massive responsibility at age 36.
Right.
And to understand a leader who then served continuously until his death on January 2nd, 2018, we have to rewind. We have to go all the way back to August 21st, 1927 in Salt Lake City to see exactly how his foundation was built.
Right, because 1927 means he is growing up right in the teeth of the Great Depression.
Yeah, very tough time.
And he was born into a loving home, one of 6 children. But it wasn't just his immediate family. There was this huge, sprawling, extended family network. His aunts, his uncles, grandparents, they all lived close by. Actually, his grandfather owned most of their block in Salt Lake City.
Which is pretty amazing to have that kind of support system.
Yeah. But the geographic detail that really stands out from the sources is that his family lived in an area described as between the tracks.
And that phrase, between the tracks, that tells you everything you need to know about his childhood environment.
Yeah.
Because in the 1930s, living right up against the railroad tracks meant you were at the literal epicenter of transient America. The railroads were the arteries of the Great Depression.
So they were seeing it all firsthand.
Exactly. You had this constant flow of people riding the rails, looking for work, looking for food, completely destitute.
Which meant that, poverty and desperation weren't just abstract concepts you read about in a textbook. They were walking past his front door every single day.
Right. And yet within that really harsh setting, family time was paramount. They didn't have money for grand vacations, obviously. So family time meant eating together, sitting on the porch, listening to the radio, and crucially, serving others.
His mother is just a prime example of this. Because they lived by those tracks, men would frequently knock on their door asking for food. And his mother was widely known in the neighborhood for her kindness.
She really was.
She didn't just hand a guy a piece of bread out the back door. She frequently invited these travelers, complete strangers, passing through on the railroad right into their home, sat them at the table, and gave them a hot meal. And young Thomas, or Tommy as they called him, watched this happen over and over.
Which is such a powerful thing for a kid to witness. We often think kids learn values through, lectures or Sunday school lessons.
Oh, definitely.
But children actually adopt values by watching what the adults around them do when the stakes are real. And having a hungry stranger at your door is a real stake. By inviting them inside, his mother physically broke down the barrier between us and them.
I look at it kind of like an incubator. Not in
Yeah.
a sterile way, but an incubator creates the exact right temperature for something fragile to survive. In a tough neighborhood during an incredibly tough economic time, his mother's kitchen was this warm, safe environment where empathy could actually take root in a young boy.
That's a perfect analogy,
hmm
because leadership isn't always learned in a boardroom. Sometimes it's learned by watching your mother feed a stranger from the railroad.
Yeah.
The concept of charity wasn't some academic theory for young Tommy. It was a tangible, hot meal at his own dining table.
Right.
So there's direct, unbroken line between those early observations of his mother's generosity and the adult President Monson, whose life became an absolute example of love and service.
But, observing empathy is one thing, practicing it is another entirely.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where his childhood hobbies come into play, which is just fascinating. Because he spent his childhood summers at Vivian Park in Provo Canyon with his cousins, fishing and playing outdoors.
The classic boyhood summer.
Yeah, and he had this intense affinity for animals. He raised rabbits and pigeons, but he also had this habit of bringing home other people's dogs, mistakenly thinking they were strays.
He was just a one-man animal rescue operation.
Exactly. He just wanted to save things. But the absolute centerpiece of his childhood, and honestly, this is one of the most brilliant masterclasses in mentorship I have ever heard, involves his pigeons.
Yeah, this story is incredible.
So he had a leader in his church's youth program, his young men's leader, and this leader gives young Thomas a pigeon, but it's a homing pigeon.
Right, which is a key detail.
Wait, let's think about that. A homing pigeon is biologically programmed to fly back to where it came from, so this leader gives him a bird that is guaranteed to fly away and go right back to the leader's house.
It sounds like a terrible gift for a kid.
Right. I'd be so frustrated. How is handing a kid a bird that constantly runs away a good mentorship strategy?
It sounds so counterintuitive, but it was actually masterfully intuitive. Because every single time that bird flew back, Thomas had to walk or run over to this leader's house to retrieve it. And the leader didn't just hand the bird back and say, "See you next time, kid." Every time Thomas showed up, looking for his pigeon, the leader would use that opportunity to tell him about someone in the community who is in need.
That is just, it's genius. And then young Thomas would go to that person and offer them friendship or encouragement or service. The brilliance of that young men's leader is off the charts. He essentially gamified community service using a homing pigeon.
He totally did. And the reason this specific teaching method works so well is because it wasn't a lecture.
Yeah.
Empathy and service, they aren't single action events, right? They're habits.
Yeah, muscle memory.
Exactly. It was active, repetitive physical engagement. Thomas had to physically track the bird and then physically walk to the person in need. His body was literally learning the habit of seeking out the vulnerable.
I just love that. And clearly, this wasn't just a passing phase either. Pigeons and fishing remained lifelong hobbies for him. He actually raised Birmingham rollers later on.
Which are incredible birds.
Yeah, performing pigeons that actually spin backward in the air. He won all these state and national trophies for them, which tells me that when he committed to something, he went all the way.
Right. And as he transitions into adulthood, we see that exact same capacity for dedication scale up in a massive way.
Let's talk about that transition because the timeline of his early adult life is just incredibly dense. He attends Salt Lake City public schools, and then we see his military service. He served in the U.S. Navy near the end of World War II.
Which brings a whole new level of discipline to his life.
Oh, absolutely. And then his academic excellence really kicks in. He graduates summa cum laude from the University of Utah in 1948 with a bachelor's in business management.
And we have to look at his personal life right at that same time, too.
Yeah, he married Frances Beverly Johnson on October 7th, 1948. So he's navigating a new marriage, finishing a rigorous degree at the top of his class, and, they go on to have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren.
A huge family legacy.
Huge. And he didn't stop there academically either. He later earned an MBA from Brigham Young University.
Why?
And this all sets up his leadership timeline, because following that early calling at age 36, he eventually served as a counselor in the first presidency starting November 10th, 1985, before becoming the 16th president on February 3rd, 2008.
It is a staggering timeline of responsibility.
Okay, so looking at this, I have to stop and ask a question. Because we have a guy with an MBA, a Navy veteran, trained in corporate business management.
Yeah.
Those environments are all about logistics, hierarchy, hard metrics, right? But everything we've talked about regarding his legacy is entirely based on heartfelt stories, humble testimony, and charity. How does a background in business management and the military translate into that kind of legacy?
That is such a fascinating question, and the answer is really in how he synthesized those two worlds. Running a global church requires immense organizational acumen. You are dealing with global real estate, thousands of congregations, massive administrative challenges.
You can't just run that on good vibes.
Exactly. You need the hard skills. And the MBA and the Navy background provided him with exactly those tools. But he never let the corporate mindset override his core values. He used those hard skills purely as an engine to deliver on charity and community service.
Oh, I see. So the business side just kept the lights on so he could focus on the people.
Precisely. The logistics allowed the organization to function flawlessly, so his day-to-day focus could remain entirely on the individual. He synthesized the efficiency of a statesman with the empathy of that boy who watched his mother feed strangers.
That makes so much sense. It distills his whole philosophy down. And, we can see that overarching philosophy in his own words. There's this defining quote from the sources that just sums it all up perfectly.
What's the quote?
He said, "I always want the Lord to know that if he needs an errand run, Tom Monson will run that errand for him."
Wow, an errand.
Right. Think about that phrasing. An errand is going to the grocery store. It's dropping off the mail. It's so mundane. To be a global leader and view your work simply as running errands requires incredible humility.
It strips away all the grandeur and ego.
It really does. And honestly, it draws a direct thematic line right back to the pigeon story. Because the man who stood on a global stage and promised to run errands for the Lord is the exact same person as the boy who ran down the street to chase a homing pigeon and wound up helping a neighbor in need.
That is a beautiful way to put it.
He didn't fundamentally change, he just scaled up the errands. He continually encouraged others to serve with charity through his heartfelt stories.
And that brings this deep dive directly back to you, the listener. Because while Thomas S. Monson was a global religious leader, the principles of his life, feeding a traveler, checking on a neighbor, offering friendship, those are entirely accessible to you right now. The sources explicitly ask, how can you apply it to your life? You don't need a boardroom or a global title to run an errand for someone in need.
You just need a willingness to look out for people. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
If our childhood hobbies and the everyday mundane actions of our parents are the actual blueprints for our adult legacies, what stray dogs or homing pigeons are you cultivating in your own life right now? What small daily habits are you building that might end up defining who you become?
That is a fantastic question to ponder.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.